So I've noticed with organizations in the health freedom movement, having been a part of them for the last 3 years, I've noticed that they all tend to fail in the same way. And yeah, this is this is an analysis. I hope it helps the state of what you'd call the movement. Um, yeah, currently there's been some limited wins. I don't know which of that is actually attributable to the medical freedom movement. Certainly, there's better and worse organized institutions in that. I think Aaron Siri. He's a serious operator. There's other less serious operators, and some outright grifters as well. But yeah, I think it's important to practice discernment and yeah, choose basically hold people to a high standard. Um, don't give your audience ship to someone easily. I would say that. I would say generally there is low rigor. Um, I like to phrase this shortly as anti-vaxxers have a point, but they can be retarded. That's a big that's a big issue with the movement. Is there's legitimate complaints which have been shut out of the institutions, and so this alternative world forms, and it's a community and is defined as we don't believe in the mainstream, so that becomes the more important attribute than if someone's intellectually curious, if they answer questions. So, in short, to be frank, it becomes a bit of a circle jerk. And when you have that, and then you have donations that are dependent on ideological conformity, and especially I've been in some of these orgs, and like these were paranoid times, but people are super paranoid and not trusting. So it's yeah, it's a very weird dynamic, but I don't wish to cast aspersions. It's an extremely weird time, or it was, especially during lockdown, when so much of normal life effectively became illegal for a large proportion of the population. So, no casting no aspersions, but yeah, a lot of people they never really got back from COVID, at least, or it might have took them a while. It's kind of like I don't know. I haven't heard of this for a while, but you know, it used to be a year ago or so. You would hear about people who were still practicing social distancing, like still being like doing it fully. Sometimes they'll show up on Twitter. They're mad at some airline for I don't know their stewardesses not wearing masks or something like that. It's like it's 2021. Anyways, that's not the point. But yeah, there's still people who are stuck very much in the war mode, and yeah, COVID. It's been well, COVID itself. It's been 6 years. Vaccines have been 5. So it's been some time. There haven't been mass casualties, but there has been a population of people who have developed persistent symptoms. Of course, I think it behooves us to study what's happening physiologically and to find solutions to that. But medical freedom orgs, they are not the right vehicle for that. It needs to be rigorous research, patient centered. Research is just not a priority. It's not sexy. It's not. It doesn't get people emotional. It might appeal to higher level donors, um, but it can pass um, in a typical news cycle when you're very focused on, call them, low information audience or low information donors. So yeah, how most medical freedom orgs circle the drain is they appeal to this low information audience, and that scares away all the smart people, and they have to double down. And so they keep doubling down until their content is about nanobots, etc., etc., and no one, no one serious wants to be associated with them. So that's typically how it evolves, and it is a pretty strong attractor because most of the dissident orgs have ended ended up in that, to a greater or lesser degree. Um, you know, playing with sensationalism, etc. And yeah, the question is, if you have an attractor that's so strong, not how can you resist it through your personal merits or your personal strength, but how do you make it constitutionally impossible for that to happen? So I've thought about it for Open Source Medicine, which is my organization, and the approach we've come up with is everything has to be peer reviewed, and we're only going to publish through normal academic channels. And what that accomplishes is it gives us some sense of quality control. I know peer review isn't perfect, but it is being evaluated by the community that you are seeking to convince. So that's a plus. And if something is evaluated in peer review and taken apart, I think it can be a very positive. It's not fun. It's not fun when you're in it, but it can be a very positive experience, um, and it can greatly improve the quality of an article. And yeah, I think publishing needs to be about quality. That's that'll sound obvious, but it's it's so much a metrics or a numbers game in academia. So it is important to be impactful and to be productive, sure, but quality has to come first. That's the ultimate judge. So that's our focus. Instead of just being very, very permissive, we need to target journals, and in particular respected journals. So that is how we gain the respect of our peers and keep ourselves from going in this death spiral. So that's going to sound, kind of almost anticlimactic for a solution. It's just to publish in peer-reviewed journals. I think when it comes to a constitution, a constitutional statement or doctrine that prevents this slide, that's quite important because we are human and we do suffer these temptations, to publish volume instead of quality. So yeah, how do we guard against that? So For one, the peer review has got to be absolute, and there needs to be a certain threshold level of journal to publish in. So I know how it can be if you haven't published an article in a while and you want that next one. It's yeah, you can be tempted to lower the level of journal, and also, very well put together pieces, they take longer, and so you get a bunch of lower quality pieces or fewer high quality pieces. And you'd think in the numbers game the lower quality pieces would win out, but and there is considerable variation in this, but it tends to be worth it to invest in quality, because top 1% does a lot better than the top 95th percent. Um, and yeah, it's better to do quality and quantity, but if you have to choose, do quality, because that's going to be what distinguishes you. It doesn't have to be a lot, just has to be outstanding. So yeah, our journals were aiming high, and yeah, we aim Q1 for first submission. There are circumstances where we would publish in a smaller journal. That is if we feel the work is better suited to one of those. So, like, as I have provided that as an out, how does this differ? For one, where I've worked previously, the article processing charges were always a factor. Um, yeah, it was always a negotiation, and yeah, it's important. Yeah, it's and yeah, basically we were limited by that. So it is important to be able to go for it. So I think it's better to aim high. You know, there may need to be funds set aside for article processing fees, but that's fine. Anyways, um, that is practically how we differ. Constitutionally, I think I haven't thought this through completely, but I think there's very attractive elements in the DAO structure, that's decentralized autonomous organizations. As well, I'm also very much attracted to the work of Curtis Yarvin and on monarchy, the accountable CEO. So the issue with a lot of the new forms of workplace organization is, non-hierarchical ones, is they lack order. And it's interesting. There's a bunch of cases where it doesn't work, um, but it's very interesting the sets of circumstances that you have with cases where it does work out. I take a company like Valve. Um, the software developers there, they're all very much at the apps, they're the top of their fields. So there is, it might seem very very flat inside that, but everyone there is a killer. So that's one aspect, and yeah, everybody comes to it as a craftsman. Basically, it's software is their craft, and there is a level of community and maybe some shared experience. They are they all cut their teeth in the early days of software, so that's that's a bonding experience. Anyways, it's the insights you take from a company like there, it might not be applicable to a general workplace, but it is also an issue of what type of workplace, what kind of people are you hiring? You know, are you hiring people who have some level of autonomy, or are you just hiring people to do a task? And either way can work, but it's different people in each case. So yeah, I think there's some ideas in leadership and organization to discover that way, to see how we can work together and avoid, yeah, some of the negativity in nonprofit organizations. So that is my thoughts on open source medicine and how it can advance. And I'll let you know on some of the priorities that we're working on. To be short, drug repurposing, a dengue biobank, and PACVS diagnostic criteria. Those are our main initiatives. So, thank you.